Dave Arnold, your host of Cooking Issues, coming to you live from the heart of Manhattan at Rockefeller Center and Newsstand Studios. Joined behind me, as usual, with John. How you doing, John?
Doing great, thanks.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Got Joe Hazen rocking the panels here. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Doing well. Up in Vancouver Island, Nanaimo, we have Quinn. How you doing, Quinn? Quinn? He's there somewhere. He's trying to make tea. We'll talk about it in a minute. I'm assuming in L.A. we have Nastasia the Hammer Lopez and Jackie Molecules. Am I correct?
I'm in Portland with my brother.
Oh, Portland. How's your brother? Is he
and
on?
I am in LA.
Oh, L.A. How's Portland?
Good. Joey's here.
Yeah. Hey, Joey. How you
What's up?
doing? This is Joey Lopez, people. Yeah. Yeah. More of an expert in a different kind of herb. Today's going to be about tea. Joey, a little more of an expert in a different herb. Different well-known herb. Yeah.
Wasn't Joey all about the muñeca too, or am I getting my facts mixed up?
Oh, of course he's about the muñeca. First of all, the whole Lopez family loves any sort of puppet-related muñeca, and the drink muñeca. Obviously, that's
what I was getting at.
Yeah. It's a. By the way, so in the spirit of recent episodes, we're going to introduce our special guest. This one here by request of Quinn, who I assume is back online. Quinn, you there?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah. We have Dylan Rothenberg, tea. So, founder, proprietor of Wu Mountain Tea?
Yep.
Okay.
That's
and
right.
also professor of tea science still at South China in Guangzhou, South China Agricultural College in Guangzhou?
Yep, South China Agricultural University, SCAU, SCAU.
Yeah,
Yep,
nice.
In Guangzhou, China.
So you're professor of tea horticulture?
So I'm wrapping up my PhD right now.
Yeah.
So the title, I suppose, would be PhD candidate.
Yeah.
Not a professor yet, but hopefully would like to be someday.
But like very soon, Dr. T.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm finishing my thesis right now, doing the...
All right. But you live here in New York now?
I'm back in the States kind of visiting family.
All right.
Just here to kind of reconnect with some family and friends. Had my brother get married recently, so came back to see that, and then I'm back to China in probably 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, so you probably left as soon as the zero COVID thing turned off? Because we haven't been able to visit China since the pandemic. We haven't been able to go to China. It's a huge, there are many things, but like it's bad for business.
19.
Yeah.
Yeah, I left when zero COVID was still in place. So it was nice to leave, actually. It was pretty tough living under those conditions, but yeah.
Well, since you have an actual job in China, I'm not going to ask you to comment on anything in China because I know how that goes.
I actually very much appreciate that. I really do.
Yeah. All right, well, this is the portion of the show. By the way, so Dylan's brewing some tea, which we'll talk about in a minute, but this is the portion of the show where we shoot the breeze about what's happened in the past week or so. Hopefully from a food-related perspective, but you never know. Mm-hmm. So, crew, you got anything?
I went to Arturo's the other night for dinner on Houston and Thompson. Have you ever been?
Yeah. Bought a hat, I see.
Yes. Well, yeah, I needed a new kitchen. I left my other one in the taxi the other night. But yeah, that place is absolutely freaking delicious.
Okay, can I give you my bad opinion?
If you want.
So I haven't been there since the, I don't know, late 90s, I guess, late 90s, maybe early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And back then it was like a well-known place, but it was a pizza place, Have they changed their game, or is it just people have come around to their style because it was a place. It was fine. You know what I mean?
Well, I think their pizza's very good. Coal oven.
Right. Lombardi's style coal? Not that Lombardi's owns coal ovens. You've never been to Lombardi's?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to fix that. But yes, very, very good pizza. And I don't know, I had the chicken franchise and some fried calamari, and it was all very, very delicious.
Yeah.
A little tea for you here.
Tea? All right. So, Dylan, what tea are we sipping on while we're doing here?
So this is an aged white tea. So
what's that all about?
Basically, white tea is a style of tea, and I guess I'll give you the quick overview. The most important thing when you're talking about tea is basically that there's one tea plant, one species of plant that is the tea plant, and that is used to create green tea, black tea, oolong tea, white tea, dark tea, and yellow tea. There's 6 major tea types that all come from the tea plant.
What is your favorite word for non-tea tea?
Herbal tea.
Herbal tea? Yeah, I like that better. You know what? Quinn likes that awful tisane word.
Yeah,
it's nasty.
That's a bit much.
That's gross.
No, I say I go for infusion. Let's call it an infusion.
What if it's an infusion, but it's not a tea? Although it is true when I'm making liquors, I'll say blah, blah, blah tea. I'll be like, here's a rhubarb tea to add to my whatever, but I'd never serve it on its own as a tea. Yeah.
You don't have to say herbal tea every time. You can kind of shortcut it with just saying tea, but technically.
Yeah. But you're okay with tea if it has tea in it, but has other crap in it as well?
I mean, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I don't love it, but
tea womp with other natural flavors.
It can be okay.
Yeah.
It can be good if they're good natural flavors.
So, is adding bergamot to tea for you like hazelnut coffee is for me?
A bit. Yeah. I would say that's a great comparison.
Yeah. All right. So you got, but aged white tea I'm not familiar with. White tea I'm familiar with. Aged white tea. What's the premise behind aging it? Well, talk about white tea for a sec.
So. White tea, so all those 6 tea types I mentioned, they all differ based on their processing style. So what you do after you pluck that fresh tea leaf off the tea plant, what do you do with that leaf? And white tea basically is the simplest of the processing styles. You just let the leaves wither for about 2 to 3 days. And, after the withering, then you're done with white tea processing. And then basically at that point, the profile will be a bit tannic. White tea, fresh white tea just after it's done it takes on green tea characteristics in that it's a bit tannic still. It has some bitter and astringent properties to it. And then when you age it over time.
How long are we talking?
So this is a 2014 white tea. So this has been aging for 9 years now.
So like pu'er level aging.
Pu'er level aging, exactly. Yep, so.
And then to give it again, what's the change in, I only care about taste, but we'll talk about that later. I only care about taste. What's the organoleptic change over time in years?
Yeah, the tannins are oxidizing, the catechins are oxidizing, and so basically you have a mellowing and smoothing out of that tannic structure. So it basically becomes more, I would say, smooth in the mouthfeel over time. That's the predominant change that happens.
Is it aged in the way that pu'er is, where it'll pick up flavor from where it's being aged and molds and mildews and, I'm saying that in a way that sounds pejorative, Nastasia's least favorite word that I ever use, but it's like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah. Does it take on that stuff as well?
Absolutely. Yep. With tea, you're taking on the characteristics of the environment that you're aging the tea in. It's still an active area of research how exactly the environment is affecting the flavor and the general profile of the tea as you age it, like what exactly is happening as a result of the environment. And
are there also straight up losses like there are in coffee?
Yeah. So as those tannins oxidize and smooth out, by nature of them changing, you are losing that tannic structure a bit, and with the loss of tannins, the total antioxidant profile of the tea declines with the loss of catechins. Yeah.
John, you okay sharing this with me?
Yeah.
I have a third.
Oh, those are
for John.
It's just a dark cup. I can't tell whether it's the same thing or not. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. So pass that back to John, and then tell me how you like me to. So Nastasia and I once went through a whole Kung Fu Chai thing with Roy Fong in San Francisco. Yeah. And Nastasia and I were both like, "This is really fun. We don't know what the hell's going on." Was that about accurate? That summed up my feelings. What about your feelings, Nastasia?
Yes, that's what it was. Yes.
We were like, "Oh, there's so much to know. Goodbye." You know what I mean? That was basically what we said. Yeah. He's still going strong. I looked him up before I came. But
Roy Fong is he's a juggernaut in the industry.
He was going to try to make his own tea plantation in California, but I can't tell if that ever worked for him or not.
He would have run into some troubles recently. Basically, in the last few years, there was a lot of tea plantations in California. They all burned down with those fires. California is attractive because you can grow anything there, right? But it's dry, and so there's issues with that.
LA's fine. Sun shines most of the time, and the feeling's laid back. Right, Stas? Palm trees grow, rents are low. You
love that song.
Love that song. Love Neil Diamond. I feel that there's people who love Neil Diamond and people who can't admit to themselves that they love Neil Diamond.
I'm the latter group.
Yeah, I love it. What about you, Joe? Neil Diamond. Come on, man.
Yeah,
Kind of.
Doesn't sound like
Well,
you
didn't
admit
he
it.
like? I mean, that one. What's that one great song that UB40 covered? Red Wine.
No, that's not him, is it?
Yeah, that was him.
He wrote that? Come on.
Yes.
No, isn't that like a Burning Spear song or something like that?
No, Red Wine was a Neil Diamond song.
That's when UB40 covered that, went on tour at Yale, that is the concert that one of our Supreme Court justices went to and got in a fight outside of Demery's, because that's the kind of fella he was back when he was in college. I won't say anymore. How do you like me to sip this? Do you have some sort of special? Because people, when they come on, experts, like we have a guy, Nick, I call him Captain Greasy, Nick Coleman, the olive oil miracle worker. If I don't taste the olive oil the way he wants me to, he gives me the stink eye. So do you have a way that we're supposed to taste this?
I trust that you know how to.
Are you a kind of a guy? Are you like what do you do?
I'm
here?
not quite a, but I'm more of a.
All right.
A modest, respectable.
Yeah,
kinda,
yeah. So some of our people are triggered by mouth noises. So I'm going to do it off mic.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
Because I think it's okay if you're mimicking the noise, but if it's an actual noise, I think it
Sure, I'll keep that in mind too.
Yeah, it's like I can mention the happy birthday song, but I can't sing the happy birthday song. You know what I'm saying?
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah, we'll do our sipping off mic here.
All right, John, what do you think? Since you think more than I do.
I think more than you do.
So that is the first infusion, and actually
Ah.
the second and third infusions are going to get better as we go. Especially with white tea, the first infusion is a bit. You need time to extract all of the flavor out of the leaves.
All right, so for those who, everyone who's not on Patreon can't see what's going on right now, but you have what I guess Roy told us was a Kung Fu Chai setup, which is you have the loose leaves in a small pot. You pour a small amount of water on them. You let it infuse for a certain amount of time. You pour it off, and then track so hot. Got to play it again. Add more water. Get a second infusion. You do that each time. You're getting different profiles out of the tea. But do you want to describe this ceremony a little more for people who are just used to like dunk and toss?
Sure. Yeah. So the essence of it is that you have a small vessel that you're using to infuse the tea, and the upside of that is that you can control each fusion very precisely. So, number one is that the water temperature stays hot, whereas if you're doing the dunk and toss thing, by the end of the cup of tea, it's already lukewarm or, tepid at best. So the temperature stays right, and you're also controlling how strong the tea is. So, when you're doing the dunk and toss style, it's basically infusing constantly throughout the cup, and by the end, it might be too strong. In the beginning, it might be too bland. So with this, it's like, I'm going to let this sit here for exactly how long I want. Then I pour it out, and that's the right temperature at the right strength, the flavor that I want. And then you can just do that a few times.
Right, and part of the whole Megillah here, right, is the spending time thinking about a particular tea and watching its evolution as something of interest, something of note, something to pay attention to, about paying attention to life in general, not just tea, right?
That's a big part of it. So that kind of gets more into the philosophical side behind it, where, so what I was just mentioning was more of the purely, like, why does it make sense from a flavor point of view? Why is it better to brew your tea this way if you want to appreciate and enjoy the flavor? But that is another side of preparing tea this way, which comes into the philosophical side, which is, taking your time, not rushing through things, not being, in a hurry to just toss your leaves. You're thinking about the infusion as it goes through. So it's a much more deliberate process that requires attention and focus, I guess.
John, go over your flavor notes with Dylan here on this first infusion round.
I don't know. I hate describing flavor notes, but it's, I don't know, really light, kind of like nice tannins, I guess, on the side of the tongue that are nice, and I don't know, just like a really nice, refreshing lightness. I'm interested to see how it's going to get a little more bitter.
Visually, the second infusion a lot darker.
Totally.
Which is bizarre because you think like, and are you using more like how? Okay, so this cup is the size. The whole infusion vessel is the size of like Pinky's Out British teacup, kind of, right?
Even smaller.
Yeah, right. So, like, how many milliliters you say that is? Of water you're putting in each time, roughly, roughly, or ounces. I don't know how you think. You can think however you want. It's your brain.
Basically, I can tell you in terms of shots.
All right.
1 to 2 shots, kind of.
All right, so like 60 mils, 60, 70 mils. Okay.
Yeah, traditionally you drink it in 3 sips. That's kind of.
Oh no, I don't mean in the small cup. I mean in the infuser.
In this.
Yeah. That's small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Small.
That's what I'm saying is like the British teacup is the actual infusion vessel is like. And you're saying it's a small amount. And how many grams of tea about you putting in?
So that was probably 8 to 10 grams.
Right. So wicked overdosed if you were just going to make this amount.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. The ratio, the leaf to water ratio is way higher than what you would see in a British style. And the only way you can get away with that is that you're stopping the infusion when you decide to, after 20, 30, 40 seconds. Right. Whereas British style, it's in there for...
Speaking of British style, well, John, you ready to comment on this second infusion yet? By the way, how many infusions are we going to do this? Just so I wrap my mind around what I need to keep track of.
Probably 5, 6.
Okay.
And then I have a second black tea down there, too.
All right, so we'll wrap the tastings through the whole show.
Yeah.
John, what do you
good.
think? What do you think tasting number 2, Wrath of Khan?
Still smooth and more... I don't know, like clean, more pronounced, but I don't know, like for me, it's more of like a tongue thing that I'm getting. So again, like on the sides, but now a little bit more on the top.
Yeah, more. They're more of what I would say is a kind of classic astringency, which I enjoy in the kind of mid to back of my tongue. By the way, what's the difference between astringency and briskness?
So, astringency is more the technical term for the sensation of that taste characteristic. It's more of a biochemical reaction of the mouth to tannins, where it's the drying of the mouth tissue. Briskness is kind of more of a descriptor word that characterizes the whole sensation of consuming something that is astringent, but also has that kind of a bit of a bite to it, like a crisp, cold breeze kind of. So it's a bit more of a word that just kind of describes the feeling rather than a precise precise reaction of the mouth.
Right. And so you're telling me that brisk brand tea, not actually brisk. I'm just messing with you. You don't need to comment. You might work for them someday. Who knows? I'm not going to. Don't say anything negative about anyone. Come on, man. I'm just joking around. So while I'm making you say negative things, though, someone wrote in, and you mentioned English style. Mood therapist wants to know if there's any best shape of a tea bag, right? Pyramidal, round, or square. I know you have feelings on microplastics, so I know certain of these things you're going to come out against, but. I told him, got to go loose anyway. Come on, guy, because they fill those things with dust. But is there a shape that makes it better? Is there any sort of answer there?
No. And actually, if you asked me 2 to 3 years ago, I would say the pyramid is the way to go, the pyramid bags. But, I mean, the research that you're referencing about the microplastics, that research dropped in 2020, I believe. And in that experiment, they used the pyramid-shaped bags, the quote-unquote nice sachets, and they found that those were releasing a lot of micro and nanoplastics into the tea. So today, I can't tell you that any bag or shape, any type of bag is better than another. All of them have shown to be not great.
Does anyone you know of put their best quality tea into a bag?
Yes, but don't want to call them out. But yeah, I mean, I have seen it. People will take pretty good tea and bag it because in their mind, you have good tea. People like tea bags.
That's fair though. That's
why
fair,
not?
Right?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Is there any hope for doing like this style, like multiple infusion gong fu chai with a bag, or is it just hopeless because you can't look at the leaves and enjoy it? Or can you still enjoy any of it if let's say I want to go out today, I don't have a setup. Like, can I do anything with a bag tea?
What I would say is just take a pair of scissors, cut open the bag, dump the leaves into your gaiwan or your teapot, and just do it like that. If you're talking gong fu tea and you have the equipment to brew it, just get the bag out of the equation. Just cut the bag open, pour the tea out, and you're good to go. You don't need the bag.
You don't need the bag.
You don't need the bag. Yeah. The bag is superfluous.
You're reminding me of the end of my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Commando, where Arnold Schwarzenegger convinces Bennett, who's not a convincing villain, that he can beat up Arnold Schwarzenegger, by the way, that he doesn't need the knife. I don't need the knife, John. Or is it he doesn't need the gun? He doesn't need the gun, John. Anyway, it's awesome. Anytime someone says you don't need X, Y, or Z, I can only think of Commando, which is not a great movie, but it's structurally perfect, I believe. There's only one mistake in the movie that I can find.
What's that?
So Radon Chong and Arnold Schwarzenegger are about to steal a float plane to go out and kill every living thing other than Arnold Schwarzenegger's daughter, played by Alyssa Milano, by the way, on this island. So the only things that are going to survive are Radon Chong, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Alyssa Milano, right? Every other living thing is going to be killed. And Radon Chong is a aspiring pilot, and so she looks and says, reads something, goes, oh, that's seaplane fuel, to prove that they had flown on a seaplane to this island. No such thing. It's a lie. At the time. She's like, oh, that designation is seaplane fuel. Not true. Only mistake I can find in the whole movie.
So how is it not seaplane fuel?
I think they just made
the
it
wrong
up.
ingredients?
No, I just think they just made it up. I think they just needed a plot thing to get them from one place to another. And, it's the one, unless I'm wrong, which I doubt I am, because my dad used to be a seaplane pilot. You know what I mean? So, I could be wrong, but probably not. You know what I mean? And so, I was like, oh, this is... It's ruining my. I can't suspend my disbelief through that, but then I'm right back into it. I'm good. Yeah. What are your thoughts on speaking of brewing things? Is that still a big thing? The flour where they tie the tea into that shape and it blooms into a flower. Is that still a thing?
It is a big thing.
You like it? You don't have a look on your face like you like it.
In Chinese we have a phrase to describe that. We say "好看不好喝." It's just it looks good. Doesn't taste good.
Wow, strong. Yeah,
so
I like that.
It's pretty, but not in the palate.
I feel you and Nastasia would get along.
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing that's the kind of phrase she likes to have in her pocket, right, Stas?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're like, oh, nah, someone who's tell it like it is. I appreciate that. Speaking of, how does an American become a tea horticulturalist in China? It seems like there's a lot of barriers to that.
There is a lot of barriers. The main one and kind of the only one is just speaking Chinese well. So that was kind of what got me into this whole space of tea is being able to speak and understand Chinese. And
so the language came first?
The language came first. Yep. I just found myself working as a translator basically for different companies in China.
Like what kind of companies? What were they doing?
All types of stuff. I mean, you've seen Made in China like that.
We are made in China.
Right?
Our stuff is made in China. Yeah.
So, I
Shenzhen actually, and
Shenzhen, right?
yeah.
So I was doing work in Shenzhen, Guangzhou, all over the place. I mean, I worked for a headphone and microphone company, clothing, air purification. I mean, anything that's made in China. Like I was kind of just taking jobs I was a kid, 19, 20, and one of the companies ended up being a tea company. Got into it that way, but
a Hong Kong company or a mainland company?
It was a company from Switzerland, and so they wanted to export tea to Switzerland, but I had to kind of move to this city in China called Guangzhou. They have the biggest wholesale tea market in the world there called Fangcun Tea Market. But, I ended up kind of just meeting a lot of people in the tea industry. Then I discovered this tea science major at the local university. But the only way that I can enroll in that program was that I could sit in a biochemistry class taught, instructed in Chinese and understand what's going on. So the only way you can get admitted into the program is if you speak Chinese and kind of understand it well enough to
like technical Chinese.
Technical Chinese, right. So you got to be able to read the periodic table in Chinese. So, but
did you also have to do Cantonese over there?
No, actually. So Guangzhou, the city I live in, is the other name for it is Canton. So it's the home of Canton, of the Cantonese culture. But in a university setting, nowadays it's all Mandarin because all the you have professors and students coming in from all parts of China.
Right.
And the common language is Mandarin.
What about the old timers though in plantations and stuff?
That's all Cantonese. So when I go out to tea farms, and I'm chopping it up with the locals, their first language is Cantonese. And if you're talking to someone who's over maybe 50 or 60 years old, they usually don't speak Mandarin, or maybe very, very broken Mandarin. But that's, it was actually really tough when I first moved there. I had to retrain my brain to be able to understand Mandarin that's spoken with a really thick Cantonese accent.
Yeah.
So it was really, when I first moved there, I was really excited about the tea thing. I was like, this is going to be great. And then for the first 2 weeks, I was like, I don't think I can do this, because when I was talking to the locals, I didn't understand anything that they were saying.
But professors and advisors, their Mandarin's flawless. You're good with that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But it's tough, because when you go out to the tea farms to meet with the tea masters and the locals, you've really got to focus and listen on what they're saying to be able to pick it up. But if you're talking to someone who's under about 50 years old, they can always at least speak broken Mandarin, Mandarin with an accent.
Is this number 3 I've got, or is this still number 2?
This is number 3.
All right, John, what do you got on number 3?
Here, let me get a...
Yep, I got you.
Come on, John, I got to keep yakking, so you got to keep current with the teas. Come on, man. Jeez Louise. Gosh. Jeez.
So in China, is there an English version of like builder's tea?
What's builder's tea?
Builder's tea is
It's a bit
like
tannic.
I believe it's English breakfast with 2 sugars and milk that all the construction guys drink. It's now become a common thing to ask when you go to you have tea. I'll have builder's tea.
Yeah, actually, and it depends on the region of China. So if you go up north, like in Beijing, the working class guys, the taxi drivers, the construction guys, they'll all have a big glass mug, like a tumbler, which is full of green tea. And oftentimes they'll have some jasmine flowers. It'll be kind of like a floral mixed green tea. So that's kind of their style of builder's tea. But if you go down to the south, it's pu'er.
Oh, really? All day, huh?
or oolong tea. Or if you go to Yunnan, it'll be it's kind of the local tea of that area. Each area has their own local tea, and the builders, quote unquote, will be just sipping on that all day long, like it's water.
I like pu'er, but a lot of people don't like pu'er. I know you do, because you put some videos up, but like Nastasia made the good. It was your idea, right? Bourbon and pu'er. That was your thing, Stas. It was good, right? Remember when Emmerich gave us all of that fancy pu'er, didn't tell us how much it cost, and we had to make a cocktail? You're like, pour in the bourbon. Remember?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Pour it in the bourbon. That's what you said. It was good.
Yeah.
Until we found out how freaking much that tea costs, and then I threw up. You know what I mean? Like,
Do you remember what area it was from, or what the name of it was?
I know it was a $400 disc.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, we just... By the way, the noise you're hearing in the background is the water boiling. So that's the sound of freshness, people. Number 3, this is my favorite so far.
Yeah. The third one is typically kind of known as the best.
Yeah?
Yeah, they say...
What about with children? Third one best?
Third one,
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I was first. I would make my sister the best on...
Oh, I see.
on both sides of my family, actually. Yeah. That's fine. I'm okay with it. All right, let me get to some questions while this is brewing. So one of the questions was, how did you get into it? So we've kind of addressed somewhat how you got into it. My impression is that from the tea people that I visited in Hong Kong and in Taiwan, that it's a relatively close-lipped group of people. So it must be hard to kind of get into the inner circle of some of these producers and whatnot, right? Is it at an ag university? Are you helping them with with problems they have, so they're more open to you coming in and talking to them, or is it like you're a competitor? How do they view you?
Yeah, it's an interesting comment about the closed-lipped thing, especially in Hong Kong. There's a lot of closed lips in regards to tea among the traders and merchants of tea, the buyers and sellers. But in the academic space, it's totally different, because you're conducting research and you're all working on the same genome of the tea plant. You're all trying to progress towards the same goal. I mean, there is a bit of, if you're on an active research project, you can't, you can't share your findings until you publish them and stuff like that in normal academic setting. But that whole closed lip thing, which I experienced and which any person who tries to learn about tea will know about for sure. That thing is not a factor in academia. It is to a small degree, but not for the information that matters. For the, like, what's the best tea type?
Yeah.
What's the, when you're just going off the hip and just saying, stuff that you feel, opinions, like, there'll be closed lip feelings about that. But when you're actually talking about real knowledge and real information, which is, the biochemical underpinnings of the tea plant, how is the tea leaf responding on a molecular basis? What is actually this tea plant doing? That stuff's all public. And nobody shares that. Everybody shares that. Nobody hides that. So I felt like, luckily, the deeper I dove into it, the more open it became. Because when you're looking into it that deeply, you don't have time to play games and to conceal information. It's like, all right, I have a 3 billion base pair genome sequence here. We need to figure out what the hell these genes are doing.
Is that roughly what it is?
Yeah, it's actually about the same size as the human genome. So, you're doing real science, and like all of that closed lip stuff, like that's kind of for the merchants and for the people who don't really know what's going on. And I get that a lot on my channel a lot, because in my videos, I take everything that I know and put it completely out there and don't hold anything back. I say all the information. And the reason I'm like that is because of my professors at the university. They're like that too. And
You want to tell them what your channel is so they can find it?
Sure. It's just Woo Mountain Tea, WU, Woo Mountain Tea on YouTube. And I saw in academia, the guys and the women who know the most about tea, who truly know the most about tea, they're the most open about the knowledge. They're the least gatekeeping people. The ones who are gatekeeping are actually the ones who don't know that much, because they feel insecure about the information they have, and they feel that it's limited, and they need to kind of safeguard it, because that's where their value is coming from.
Where their money's coming from.
Where their money's coming from, right? But the ones who really have the profound knowledge, they just let it all go. And I've had the privilege of studying under some of these people, and it's incredible. And when you really look at it and you start to dig into all of the information there is out there, you realize that there's so much information, there's so much still to be discovered, that there's no point in holding anything back. It's a drop in the ocean, so.
So to go back to the question that you've been answering the whole time, how'd you get into tea? AXBBYCZD0 basically asked all of those questions. How'd you get into it? But maybe to kind of piggyback on their question, what prompted you to become so interested, which you've been talking about, like how would you say if someone wanted to get into this industry, what should they do? I guess learn Mandarin is what you said, but like, is there anything else you think? Or
I mean, so learn Mandarin, actually, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but that's a great start. I mean, if you want to, I guess if you want to study tea in academia here, I'm pouring up some tea here. Thank you. So yeah, I'll give a bit more of a realistic answer, because it's not like anyone who's listening to this who wants to get into tea is gonna be like, okay, step one, go learn Mandarin. So I would say actually a great place to start is to learn about plant biology and actually just basic biology. And again, that is a kind of a large barrier to entry, almost analogous to learning Mandarin, right? But there's one textbook. If you get just a basic biology textbook and kind of just learn about, how the cell works, especially in a plant, that's a great start. But if you want to maybe go a bit simpler than that, actually, I made a masterclass. So I released it in August, and for the 6 months before I released it, I did nothing but sit in my room and film and edit this series of 8 different chapters. And it's actually kind of aimed at what you're talking about, which is that if you're someone who wants to get into tea, where do you start with all this information? Because I'm not going to learn Chinese, and I'm not going to read multiple textbooks about plant biology. So I kind of compiled all of the relevant information related to tea and everything that is relevant and good to know about tea. And I'm not, trying to plug that. It's just the simple answer to that question. It hasn't really quite been compiled in a way that I've seen that's really accessible. So if you go through those 8 chapters, it kind of touches on all of the critical aspects, because there's no textbooks, there's no resources quite out there that really put it together in a good way. So I just kind of went ahead and did that. So that is a free resource on the YouTube channel that I just mentioned. But you can kind of try your best at getting the piecemeal resources that are out there, but it's not great. That's infusion number 4.
Is infusion number 4?
Yep.
So it's still balanced, but I feel it's dropping down a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The savory elements are kind of dropping out a little bit. Right.
Quinn, what do you got for me?
Yeah, we have just a question from the live chat. Going back to the language thing, Will was asking if Dylan has any recommendations for actually resources around Mandarin.
Yeah, how'd you learn? College? Or all your whole life you've taken it, or what?
So actually, the way that I learned the most was by talking to a tutor on Skype. I mean, so basically, it doesn't matter what language you're talking about. The framework is grab a basic textbook, grab a basic a book that teaches you just the fundamental structure. You don't need much. You just need to learn how the sentences are laid out, their basic grammar. Do you put the verb first or the noun first or the adjective first? Just each language is a little bit different in that sense. You get the basics and a few vocabulary words under your belt, maybe 50 verbs or a few adjectives and nouns. You just get the basics, and then before you feel like you're ready, then you dive into forcing yourself to speak with a native speaker as much as humanly possible. And for me, that came through just chatting with a teacher on Skype. And so what I would recommend, what I did is I just found a graduate student whose major in China is teaching Chinese as a second language. I just, went and DM'd this university, this professor. I found her email online. I said, hey, do you have any graduate students who would be willing to tutor me learning Chinese? And she said, yeah. My whole department is Chinese as a second language. I have a great graduate student. And I paid her, $15 an hour. This was in 2010, 11. Not much, and just chatted with her on Skype. I was in upstate New York. That's where I grew up. I was there in high school chatting with her on Skype for an hour a day using the basic vocabulary and grammar that I had learned through the book. And it's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable because you're trying to converse with somebody in a language that you're not familiar with. But this is how the human brain learns language, right? When you're a kid and you're trying to learn your first language, it's sink or swim. It's like, I need to convey this information, in your brain kind of, you force yourself to have to figure it out. And
I'm pretty sure I would sink.
Yeah. No, look at you speaking English right now. Like you clearly swam. So, so basically, if you get the basics and then you force yourself to try to speak it with a tutor, that's all you need, and you can find tutors for not that much. And then if maybe that's outside of your budget, then you can watching TV shows with subtitles is a great way. But just really, you have to try to force yourself to speak as much as you can. Learn just enough, just barely enough, and then throw yourself into the deep end of the pool with speaking as much as you can. That's what I would say.
All right, so Max wrote in and says, you hear a lot of Chinese sources talking about cha qi. So I guess that's qi like qigong, like
energy.
Energy, yeah. Is this just caffeine content, or is it more complicated than that?
It's a bit more complicated. So there's a few psychoactive compounds in tea. You have caffeine, which is the stimulant, the famous one. You have theanine, which is an amino acid which provides the calming properties of tea, which actually synergize with caffeine to create the unique cha qi that this person's referring to.
What does that mean? Focus but alert?
Yeah. It's a calm focus, an alert, calm, relaxed focus, as opposed to just purely caffeine, which would be kind of a bit jittery.
You mean like my espresso high that I have every morning?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
So it's that, but calm, more meditative than that. So you have caffeine and L-theanine. Those two are the primary drivers of the chachi, but it's not quite just that. It's a bit more complicated than that, and we don't fully know the picture of chachi, all because there's other compounds that studies have shown are probably bioactive and they affect the brain for sure, but we don't know exactly how and in what way. But caffeine and theanine, that calm focus, is a major part. And then you have other kind of catechins, those tannins, those are acting on the brain as well in ways that we're not totally sure about. And then all of the bioactive compounds, the sugars, the polysaccharides, everything that's bioactive affects the body and affects consciousness in specific ways that we're still figuring out. But chachi, it's complex, but at its core, I would say caffeine and L-theanine are the key drivers, that calm focus.
And Max also wants to know if there's any type of tea that you think are wildly underappreciated in the West that you found in China.
So raw pu'er, I would say that's the first one that comes to mind. Raw pu'er. White tea, I would say, is a bit underappreciated. I mean, honestly, all good tea is underappreciated, I would say. Really, another big one is really fresh green tea. Because we don't produce tea here, and all of our tea is imported. And for this one, it's aged, right? So it doesn't matter that we're an arm and a leg and an ocean away from where this was produced, because we're aging it for 10 years anyway. But green tea, the best green tea should be fresh, just
like
finished.
How fresh?
As fresh as possible.
Really? So
I plucked it this morning, and now I'm drinking it this afternoon. Maybe a bit longer than that.
In other words, but on the same level as roasted coffee?
Yeah. Yep, that's a great analogy. So, and you simply don't get that here. You only have access to that degree of freshness in the tea-producing areas.
And how much does vacuum packing, as long as it's not crushed, right, but vacuum packed in a solid, how much does that preserve the life of the freshness of the green tea?
Pretty good. Yeah. No, that's the best you can do.
And does anybody do that? Ship it over in vac?
Not that I know of. I'm working on trying to do that too. It's tough because in the past I've tried to do fresh green tea, and I don't have that. I sell tea to my friends and family and a few other people, so it's hard because I'll buy it and I'll be like, hey, fresh green tea. Then 6 months will pass, and then I still have some. So,
does hard vacuuming in a bag affect the infusion because you crush the pores of the leaf? Does it affect it in any way? I mean, it's going to stop some of the oxidation and all of that, but is there any negative effect of vacuum packing if it's hard packed like that?
If there are, they would be negligible effects
compared to what you're gaining.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. So it's a net positive for sure. Yeah, I mean, it would be best if you didn't damage the leaves in any type of way. And again, all of that adds up, which is why the true fresh tea is great. So I guess to come back to the question, really fresh green tea it's hard to even say underrated because people don't even have it. So they're not even rating it. It's just non-existent. So that's something that we're missing out on big time.
So if green tea freaks here, and there's plenty for health reasons, green tea freaks here, if they could taste that, would they be like, what? Oh my God, what a jerk I've been my whole life.
Yes. It's mind-numbing. How incredible a fresh, really well-done green tea is it's unbelievable. Because, with the white tea that we're having now, it's a good white tea and you can appreciate certain elements of the flavor. And it will knock your socks off, with a good pu'er or a good white tea. With a fresh green tea, it is so different that you don't even believe what you're feeling in your mouth. It's because there's a whole level of umami and food-like qualities. It doesn't even feel like you're drinking tea. It's a different universe.
So how much, is it expensive there or is it not expensive there?
Not that expensive.
Right.
I mean,
I mean, would it be
expensive is a relative term,
would
but-
it be a valid business to, like, there's a direct flight from, United, Hong Kong, Newark every day, right?
Yeah.
Back
Yeah.
and forth.
Yeah.
Would it be a valid business to, like, ship it here, drink it tomorrow, or not?
Yeah, and I would say, right. So if you asked me, hey, go get me some fresh green tea, right? Because the spring crop is coming in March. It's about one month or 6 weeks away from today. If you wanted to get your hands on some green tea, and I'll be in China actually at that time. If you want me to ship you some back, it wouldn't. The price for me to buy it there fresh, not that expensive. To ship a box of it back, not that bad. And in relation to the value and how drastically different it is, I would say it's not expensive at all compared to the value that you're getting.
All right, Quinn, get on that. Let's do it. We'll taste it on air. You want to?
Yeah, I know. I'm already sold. So don't worry about that.
All right. So we'll do it. We'll get it done. We'll get it done, people. We'll tell you about it. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll make it happen.
Quinn, let's keep in touch about that. I'll send you a little green tea package this spring.
For sure.
Will wrote in and said,
You know what's upsetting?
What?
Oh, sorry.
What?
So go ahead.
No, what?
Go ahead. We'll talk about it after.
Wait, you just told people there was something upsetting about tea.
Cliffhanger. Come on. What's going on?
Okay. There is, of course, a tea plantation on Vancouver Island, which is, of course, absorbently expensive. But the last time I checked, they take their green tea and they smoke it.
They smoke it? They smoke the green tea?
Well, they like...
Like not in
Yeah,
a blunt.
like a
Not in a
maple
blunt. You
syrup.
mean like
No,
Lopsan style?
Yeah, like Lopsan, yeah.
Imagine smoking it like
Yeah,
a blunt.
like
I've tried.
What's it like?
Nothing to write home about.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. About what you'd imagine. So they're smoking their green tea. That's hard to hear because it incited hope that a fresh green tea could be had from a plantation that close to us. But
Well, maybe I'll see if they've changed their offerings. But last time I checked, that was the green tea they offered.
All right. Well, talk to him, Quinn. Talk to him.
yeah.
Especially because, like, the thing is like, let's say you could grow tea here, which obviously, as you said, you can, right?
Yep.
Or I'm sure in Hawaii I'm sure they grow great tea or whatever. I don't know that. I'm guessing.
No, they do. Yep.
But if there's not a culture of understanding what fresh green tea is like, there's no incentive for the proprietor to do a great job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, that's a big issue. Is for me when I'm in China, it's like I could get some great fresh tea and send it back, but I don't have that many people who are lining up at the door to get their hands on. And they are out there.
No, you do.
No, I do. Okay.
We'll fix that problem.